Because we believe that lasting solutions are found not on the battlefield, but at the diplomatic table, we remain proud to oppose today's motion. First, to clarify, we cannot compare Obama's foreign policy with inaction, because many of his most controversial foreign policy decisions have been strategic inaction. Instead, we must evaluate whether his foreign policy of prioritizing soft power and avoiding a military response has done less harm and more good than what Obama himself has characterized as the standard American doctrine of relying on brute force and unilateral military intervention. Clashes in today's round beg two questions. First, which side better responds to international crises? And second, which side better protects American interests? In responding to international crises, side proposition has argued for the US to take on the role of a global military hegemon. They bring up examples such as the Russian annexation of Crimea and the Syrian civil war, where the Obama administration elected not to intervene, and side opposition claims that we could have saved lives. And while this argument ignores the often deadlier ramifications of American intervention, the bigger issue the proposition fails to recognize is that individual interventions are not isolated. When the US unilaterally responds to a crisis, it sets a precedent that we bear the sole burden of protecting the international community. In 2013 in Syria, Britain decided not to assist the US in airstrikes against Bashar al-Assad. This action reflected the belief among Western nations that American intervention supplanted rather than supplemented their own response. Obama's subsequent refusal to act alone in Syria or to take military action in Ukraine without the full backing of NATO set a new precedent that the US is a superpower, but not the sole power. Side proposition has also argued that Obama's deviation from the brute force of sanctions threatens international security. Yet they blatantly disregard the strategic value of opening up to historic enemies. Lifting sanctions on Cuba and Myanmar has augmented America's ability to export capitalism and democracy through the free market system. Lifting embargoes on Iran and Vietnam has not only diminished the threats posed by Iran's nuclear system and by China's provocations in the South China Sea, but turned both countries into symbols of a stronger American-led world order, one in which the US is no longer a prisoner to its own history and is instead free to embrace the ideals of internationalism. Second, because the foremost duty of the Obama administration is to protect the United States, we have to ask who better protects American interests. Side proposition tells you that reducing military intervention decreases America's credibility in front of the international community. And while they would be correct in saying that Obama is not feared like militarily aggressive leaders such as Nixon, in an age of increasingly nuanced diplomatic ties, this is an advantage. Trust that America will not suddenly intervene in proxy wars decreases the need for world powers to militarize their offensive forces. The international community is undeniably safer when coalescing around principles of mutual defense rather than mutually assured destruction. But military intervention goes deeper than mere geopolitics. Obama's policies prefer drones over boots, preventing long-term commitments to defend war-torn areas. The casualties of failing to adopt the Obama doctrine lie in Arlington Cemetery. 7,000 of our armed brothers and sisters who paid the ultimate price in the Iraqi and Afghan wars, victims of an American military complex petrified at the very idea of restraint or inaction, and obsessed with instigating regime changes that are doomed at their inception. As Obama said in the 2014 speech, the best hammer doesn't mean every problem is a nail.